Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome this evening to our mindfulness meditation. We are live and we are going to have a lovely meditation this evening. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to see and wait for some people to pop on. Looks like I am live. I was just double checking on my app here on my phone. So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me this evening and making a commitment to your practice, your mindfulness practice this evening. No matter what you've been doing today, whether it's been running around crazy or you've been relaxing and resting. Lord knows we have a lot going on in our world right now. So if you're resting and relaxing, good for you. And if you need a rest, then you're in the right place. Because we're here to come back to ourselves, come back to our bodies mindfully, and get back in touch with our bodies, get back in touch with our breath. And we're also going to be covering chapter 10 today from the book Anger by Thich Nhat Hanh. Who this week, actually, there's been some news that Thich Nhat Hanh has his health has been failing. He did have a stroke back in 2014, I believe. 2014, I think. And he's had some complications, but lately his health is declining. And so there were some reports from Vietnam, where he is right now in his root temple, that his health was declining. So we're just holding our teacher in the light, and we're holding him in support, that his caregivers are blessed and taking good care of him, and that he's getting the care that he needs. So tonight, like I said, we're going to be doing some mindful sitting, mindful breathing, and we're going to be reviewing chapter 10 of Thay's book, Anger. But before we start, I'd like to share a quote. This is Dr. Larry Ward's new book called America's Racial Karma. And in chapter 7, he has a really great explanation of handling strong emotions, which anger is one such strong emotion. And we're going to be talking about that chapter a little bit later on. But I thought I would read this just to get us in the energy of our time here together this evening. So, Dr. Ward writes, "When the gates of grief open in my heart, I am overwhelmed by the continuousness of blood on the ground. There are a few things I can do. Many years ago in Plum Village, I heard a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh that he wrote after a bombing that happened in Vietnam during the war. A bombing by Americans, and he wrote this poem called For Warmth. It's a very famous poem. I hold my face in my two hands. No, I am not crying. I hold my face in my two hands to keep the loneliness warm. Two hands protecting, two hands nourishing, two hands preventing my soul from leaving me in anger." It is very important here to understand the point of anger in Buddhism. Anger is a normal, perfectly human experience that you or I may be having in daily life, but especially at this moment in relation to race. The point of anger is not to lose ourselves, not to lose our sense of integrity, not to lose our sense of loving, not to lose ourselves in fragmentation. The strong motion could be anger, it could be fear, it could be numbness. But the point of practice is not to lose ourselves. We don't push away the suffering. We feel every ounce of suffering through our whole body, but we don't drown in it either. And that's the great practice of my life. Strong emotions lay things bare for anybody who was unclear, for anyone who is addicted to dissociating from other people's suffering and pain. It is surely time to grieve their losses. Recently, I heard a poem sung as a song by my friend Betsy Rose, and I was so moved by its simple grace that I began a practice of holding the heartbreak of grief in my two hands. You can play a song or any music that's meaningful to you. Find a quiet spot, even in the car. I get as comfortable as possible and put on the song while holding my precious face in my two hands, and I make time to cry. Grief moves through me, and at the end, I take some time to relax. To overcome injustice, we must not lose our centeredness, our spiritual resilience, and most importantly, not our capacity to respond with wisdom, compassion, and action in creating a new world. I love those words by Dr. Ward, and I love the picture of my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, just holding his face in his hands to keep his soul from leaving him in anger. And in chapter 10 later on, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Thich Nhat Hanh's recommendations of calming the body through the breath in order to keep from the emotions overtaking us. Very important practice. So I'd like to invite you to get into a comfortable position, and I got my bell here. So I'm going to invite the bell. So find a nice comfortable position, sitting or laying down. And if you're driving, you can just listen to the sound of the bell and you can listen to my voice as I do a short guided meditation. You don't need to be sitting or lying down with your eyes closed. And you can get the benefit of this mindfulness practice just by calming your body and quieting your mind and breathing from your belly. Thai likes to say, pull from the ground, pull from the earth, and use the breath to pull from the earth. So I am going to start with a short guided meditation, and that's going to flow into a short silent meditation. And the goal here is not to empty your mind completely. The goal is to be able to sit with whatever comes through your mind. If you have a disturbing thought, if you have a habit, a habitual energy thought, just allow it to come into your mind, observe it, and just sit with it. Allow it to be there and not trying to push it out. Thich Nhat Hanh in chapter 10 that we're going to review later, he says through the breath, we're able to embrace the habit energy and the habitual thoughts that we think. And eventually we find that as we breathe with them, they sort of drift away on their own. So tonight I'd like to invite you to try that, just to explore your breath and see if you can sit with anything that's coming up. And if it's a disturbing thought, you can just sit and, care for yourself, be tender with yourself. Mindfulness is not always easy, especially for people who have experienced severe trauma. So if there is some severe thoughts or of traumatic thoughts that arise during these quiet moments, just be there for yourself and care for yourself so that you can just be there for yourself like a mother caring for their baby. So I'm going to invite the bell 3 times, and then we're going to start our guided meditation. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. We send our hearts out along with the sound of the bell. May all who hear it awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. In, out. Breathing in, I follow my in-breath from its very beginning to its very end. Breathing out, I follow my out-breath from its very beginning to its very end. In, out, beginning, end. Breathing in, I stop and I calm my body. Breathing out, I rest and I heal my body. Stopping, calming, resting, healing. So we'll go into silent meditation for the next little while until the next sound of the bell. I'm going to invite the small bell for stretching and massage. Stretch the body. Mind and body are one. I want to make sure that it feels happy. So we're going to talk about chapter 10 of the book Anger by Thich Nhat Hanh, and then we're going to have another sit. So chapter 10 was a lot of practices. So Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, one of his first books, called The Miracle of Mindfulness. And when I first started becoming an aspirant, I would read the book. And the Miracle of Mindfulness book is chock full of practices. And when I talked to my Dharma teacher about it, she said, "Oh, that's a wonderful book you're reading. How are you doing with the practices?" And I said, "Practices? What do you mean?" And so what happened was I was reading the book and I was very obsessed with intellectualizing the information that I was reading, not realizing that what I was reading was practices. I was reading that Thich Nhat Hanh had given us so specific practices in order to calm our bodies and to deepen our practice of mindfulness. And he does talk about this in the book, this book, Anger, where he talks about when we have strong emotions, we tend to stay in the strong emotion and allow it to rule us and to dictate how we behave, instead of stepping back, coming to the body and breathing. And he says somewhere in this chapter, what does he say? He says something about, to stay on the level of the intellect is dangerous. Strong emotions are like a storm, and to stand in the middle of a storm is very dangerous. Yet that is what most of us do when we stay in our minds, letting our feelings overwhelm us. Instead, we have to get rooted by bringing our attention downward. We focus on our abdomen and practice mindful breathing, just giving all of our attention to the belly's rise and fall. We can do this either sitting or laying down. So I think it's very interesting, when I was reading that in the chapter, I remembered myself reading The Miracle of Mindfulness and knowing that Thich Nhat Hanh had given us all of these wonderful practices, and yet I was staying in my cognitive mind, just reading them as if they were just a textbook. So what Thai is an affectionate word to say teacher, dear teacher. So what Thai has truly given us are these beautiful practices on how to take care of our anger. He says mindful breathing is the practice that can help us take care of our emotions. And we can do it very simply just by one of the guided meditations we did tonight. He says, breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I am aware of my whole body. And he invites us to go back to the body, embrace the body with the energy of mindfulness generated by the practice of mindful breathing. And he says, embrace our emotions, embrace our anger as a mother holds her baby tenderly in her arms. We are doing very much the same thing. We're going back to the body and we embrace our body with tenderness, with the energy of mindfulness. He also mentions deep relaxation, so that when we're in the throes of anger or in the throes of a very strong emotion, we can turn to deep relaxation so that we can embrace and heal our anger. And in the appendix, there's ABCD. And in Appendix D, he outlines an excellent practice for deep relaxation. I had a hard time reading it and relaxing, but on the Plum Village app, there's actually a monk that recites this exact deep relaxation and other deep relaxation guided meditations on the app. And as I was reading through it, though, cognitively, I remembered something that I do. I'm a body worker, so and also an energy worker. And sometimes when I'm working with people, I do a body scan. And that's exactly what Thich has offered us in this chapter about deep relaxation. He has us scan our bodies, starting with our toes all the way up to the head. And he even says, like, just like a scanner in an office, you know, you see the fax machine or the scanner with the light that like scans. He says that we can just, it's like that with our bodies. We can scan our bodies and imagine that the light is traveling up our bodies and scanning our bodies, and we can breathe into that particular place in the body wherever we are in the scan. For instance, if we're at our toes, he says, take a deep breath into our toes and allow the breath to go all the way to the toes and then back up. And he talks about doing this scanning practice in order to heal and transform our anger. He says, when the body functions peacefully, it can begin to heal. This helps the mind to relax and heal. Not just the body, but also the mind relaxes and heals. When we're afraid of something or when we're angry, our breath is shallow and the quality of our breathing is very low. But if you know how to begin breathing in and breathing out mindfully, calming the breath, then in just a few minutes, our breath will improve and our breathing will become lighter, more silent, and more harmonious, and our mind will begin to be calm. So I think that it's wonderful that he drew a parallel. When we're stressed and tense and angry, our breathing is shallow and makes noises. It's noisy and it's not peaceful. But when we calm ourselves through our mindful breathing, we have longer breaths, and they're quiet breaths and they're silent breaths, and that it can mirror the way that we feel. We can feel peaceful in addition to having this nice, long, quiet breath. He likes to use metaphor when he's writing. So the next part of this chapter is you can make it through the storm. And he talks about a tree and imagining that if you stay in your head and you intellectualize your anger, you are like the canopy of a tree that gets blown around. But if you're able to use mindful breathing and bring yourself back into your body all the way down to your feet, you are very much like the trunk of a tree. And even though the top is swaying like crazy in the storm, if you look at a tree that's swaying in the storm and you look at the bottom of the tree trunk, you'll notice that the tree trunk is sturdy and it's strong. And that's what he says here in this passage. He says, when you look at a tree in a storm, you see that the top of the tree is very unstable and vulnerable. The wind can break the smaller branches at any time. But when you look down to the trunk of the tree, you have a different impression. You see that the tree is very solid and still, and you know that it will be able to withstand the storm. We are also like a tree. Our head is like the top of a tree during a tempest of a strong emotion, so we have to bring our attention down to the level of our navel. we begin to practice mindful breathing. We concentrate just on breathing and on the rise and fall of our abdomen. It's a very important practice because it helps us to see that although an emotion may be very strong, it will only stay for a while and then it will go. It cannot last forever. If you train yourself to practice like this during difficult times, you will survive the storm. You are more than your emotions. It is important to remember this. During a crisis, when you breathe in and out, maintain the awareness that your emotion will go away if you continue to practice. And I think this is the last part. Actually, this is not the last part, but this is the last part I was going to share. Habit energy. He talks a lot about the habit energy and mindful breathing. And he talks about how we have habits that we do, and it's just automatic pilot. He shares a story of an American that visited Plum Village. Plum Village is the retreat center that Thich Nhat Hanh first established in France, the south of France, when he got exiled from Vietnam. And since then, he's made practice centers all over the world. There's actually 3 practice centers in the United States. One in the Bay Area in California, one in upstate New York, and one in Mississippi. And there's an unofficial one in Vermont as well. And they're all over the world. They're in Vietnam and Singapore and France and many other countries as well. But when this young American went to practice, he went on a very long retreat at Plum Village, and he reflected to Thai that he was with the monks all the time, and he was very calm and stable. He left Plum Village on an assignment to go get groceries at the grocery store in town, and he noticed that when he went to the grocery store, he was rushing around and he couldn't wait to get back to Plum Village. And he noticed, wow, why I've been on this month-long retreat at Plum Village and I've had no problem being quiet and relaxed and peaceful and not rushing around. But why did I start rushing around when I went to the grocery store? And he noticed that he didn't have the support of the monks around him and the nuns, and that he realized that his mother had always done the chores around the house very quickly. And he adopted that habit energy for himself. And so it said, with insight, he returned to the practice of mindful breathing and said, "Hello, Mom, I know you are there." And after he had done this, the energy of rushing vanished. He recognized his habit energy, embraced it mindfully, and was able to transform it. He regained the peace and solidity that he had experienced before he left the community. He knew he was only able to do this because of his practice at Plum Village. And then Tai says, we are all capable of doing this. Whenever our habit energy comes up, all we need to do is recognize it and call it by its name. We breathe mindfully and say, "Hello, my jealousy. Hello, my fear. Hello, my irritation and anger. I know you are there and I'm here for you. I will take good care of you and I will embrace you with mindfulness." Breathing in, we greet our habit energy, and breathing out, we smile toward it. When we do this, our habit energy can no longer dominate us. We are safe and we have liberated ourselves. I love that. That Thich Nhat Hanh gives us confidence that we're able to do this, that he says anyone can do this. And, if we have trouble doing it, then we just keep practicing and will continue beautifully into the future. He likes to say that all the time. We will continue beautifully into the future. Let's have a sound of the bell after all that talking, just to come back to ourselves. So let's get comfortable for our last sit of the evening. This time, this sit will be completely silent, and we can just sit quietly until the next sound of the bell. And let me just quote Thich Nhat Hanh once again before we go into this sit. Tai says, "A good practitioner is not someone who no longer has any suffering or anger or thoughts. This is not possible. A good practitioner is someone who knows how to take good care of their anger and suffering and thoughts as soon as they arise. Someone who does not practice does not know how to handle the energy of anger when it manifests, and he or she can easily be overwhelmed. But if you practice mindful living, you do not allow anger to overwhelm you. You invite the seed of mindfulness up to take care of your anger. Mindful breathing and walking will help you do this." So that's what we're just about to do. And I just wanted to read that the goal is not to have no thoughts in your mind. The goal is to have, to embrace these thoughts as they arise and just see what happens next. So I'll invite the bell 3 times, and then we can go into our silent meditation. If you'd like to sit or lay, that's fine with your eyes open or closed, but just feeling connected to your body, feeling connected to your breath, and just allowing the present moment to flood your awareness. Let us enjoy our breath and sitting mindfully until the next sound of the bell. I'm going to invite the small bell for stretching your body and massaging your body. Thank you everyone for your practice this evening. I'd like to just send the merits and the fruits of this practice that we've all shared together this evening and send it out to our world this evening. May all the goodness that we feel now that's been generated from this beautiful practice we've just done, and all the beautiful information that and knowledge that Thich Nhat Hanh has given us, including the breathing practices, may it extend out and flow and just be goodness for the world in this moment. A bow and a lotus to you, my friends. Thank you so much for your deep, deep practice today. And we'll be back again in October. There is a Facebook invite if you want to put in the comments that you need to know a link to that. I can give that to you. But we've been approved by the Friends of the Uxbridge Library up through December. So we will be doing this twice monthly still. We've been doing this ever since August 2020. So, I'm sorry, August 2019. So thank you so much for your practice, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.